Hi, my name is Martin Perhiniak, and welcome on PSD Touch Plus to this new series, Digital Art for Beginners. Thanks to the success of the first series, the Photoshop Basics, I decided to continue with the second series, which is also for beginners, but this one is about the techniques used in Photoshop to create digital art. This first episode is just an introduction to this 25 episode series, where I'm mainly going to talk about the genres and professions in the industry and how to set up Photoshop. But in the following episodes I will talk a lot about brushes, composition, sketching, working with colors, perspective, using light, proportions of the human body, capturing movement, drapery, drawing specific things like the human head, hair, hands, eyes, and we will create together photo art, matte paintings and concept art. Hopefully after watching all 25 episodes, anyone can feel comfortable to start making digital art in Photoshop. I am using Photoshop CS5 and some of the techniques that I'm going to show is only available in this version, but 90% of the things I will cover you can also follow and do in previous versions. For this series I'm going to use my own digital paintings and photographs, and I'm also going to create some new artwork for some of the episodes. Let me switch to Bridge by clicking on this little icon here on the top, where I can easily show you some examples of my work. And by selecting a file here and pressing space, we can see a full screen preview. I usually work from photo references, but most of the times only for just a specific part of the artwork. In this case, I only used a photograph for the face. When you are previewing images in Bridge, you can always click on the image to zoom into the actual size of the image. And then if you click again, you can zoom out. You can use right and left arrows to move to the next image. I drew this scanned illustration when I was 12, and a couple of years later when I first started using Photoshop, this is what I did. I colored and added these effects. This is just an example of one of my first artworks that I created in Photoshop. And here's another one. It's more like a concept art. I also like creating caricatures, and these are more like digital paintings. Here's an example where you can see the initial sketch and then the final result. Here again, if I zoom closer, you can see this is the actual size. Even Bridge has to take time until it can load in properly. So you can see from the original sketch, this is the final result. Then there's another example from the original sketch, the final result. Let me just go back again and show the other one. Also, what you can do in Bridge to compare images, you can select two images at the same time and use Ctrl B or Command B on the keyboard, which is the review mode. And in this mode, you can compare images, and you can even use the loop tool by clicking on the image when you have more than one selected, and then you can click on any of the images with this loop tool and you can compare all little details, and by using command you can move on both the images at the same time. Now in this case the original sketch was smaller in size, that's why we don't have that great control in between the two. But if you keep the same size, this way you can easily compare specific versions of your artwork. Here is also another file that I just saved to be able to show the steps that I used in another painting. So from the original sketch, what you can see here on the left, this is how I started building up the composition. Then I ended up with the blocks of colors that I wanted to use. I started to setting up the lights for the image, and I started detailing the face, And then the background, you can see that's the sketch. This is now starting to become more detailed, and I spent a lot of hours on the background here and the clouds and the buildings. And then again I spent another several hours on the dress and the henna on the hand. So you can see the whole process of this artwork here in this example. I will show you all the techniques needed to be able to paint images like these. And besides showing the techniques, I would mainly want to motivate and inspire you to start creating art with Photoshop. That's what this series is all about. Before I show you how to set up Photoshop, I would like to show you some websites where you can find inspiration and where you can also learn more about digital art. So let me just switch to my browser. First of all, of course, PSD Touch Plus, which is a great website where you can find lots of inspirational articles. If you go to articles and choose inspiration, you can find many posts about digital paintings, just like this one, 54 mind-blowing digital paintings. These collections are great just to have an idea what you can achieve in Photoshop. But if you prefer books, I recommend Ballistic Publishing. They have the most amazing books on digital art. They have the digital art annual called Exposé, but they also have masterclass tutorial books on the most popular digital art genres like concept art, digital painting, matte painting, and character design. I highly recommend these books if you want to get inspiration or if you want to learn more from professionals. But there is also another great website called DeviantArt, where you can register and have a profile and show your work to the world and get feedback from other artists. If you are searching for images that you can use as a reference, instead of using Google, I recommend Pinterest, which is a really interesting new website where you can search just like in Google, but you will find images pinned by other users. So these images were the ones that someone else found useful and interesting. You can also pin images if you want, and you can have your own pin board. But as you can see here, I searched for digital art and it found me more than 200,000 images. And it's an endless scroll. If I start to scroll down, it's a never-ending page, so it always loads in more and more images. And most of these images are quite high quality as well. And obviously if you click on an image, you can see the higher resolution version of it. Another great website is Behance, where you can also search by creative fields. And these are more project-based topics, but I also highly recommend to come here and to check this page out. You can also create your creative portfolio using this website. So once again, you can share your artwork with a network of creative professionals. Also for inspiration, I recommend Abduzido. Here you can also filter by topics. But what I mainly like is the daily inspiration on this website, which is always great fun to check out. It's good to start the day with going through the daily inspiration on this website. And of course there are so many other websites that can be useful to find inspiration or to publish your work. But I don't want to spend too much time on this. I rather show you how to set up Photoshop to do digital art. So let me just switch back to Photoshop and I just close this image. I opened one of my paintings and you can see here on the right my layers. As you can see, I try to show as much as possible from my layers. So I always keep my layers panel big and all the other panels small to be able to have enough space to do the painting itself. And one of the panels I highly recommend to use, this one is called Layer Comps. The way I think about Layer Comps is that it's some kind of extension of the Layers panel, because instead of turning on and off lots of different layers, you can save compositions based on your layers visibility and placement, and even layer styles. So to show you what I mean, I have all my layers here, and if I click on Draft, it will turn off all the paint layers and it will only show the bottom layer called Draft. So you can see how I started with this painting. Then I can go to my next layer composition and it shows only the clean version of the illustration. So once again the draft and the clean version. Then I can go to the colored version, and at the same time while I'm selecting these layer compositions, you can see that my layer visibility changes. Then I can go to details, so again colors, details, and then adding the shadow at the bottom, and if I want to I can also go to hard edge. So this adds that black edge around it, so without and with the edge. This last one is optional, this is just something that I found interesting on this specific composition. So apart from having the layers always as big as possible or as long as possible, it's also good to have layer comps close to the layers panel. And we are going to use this in later episodes. Besides the layers panel,